George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation. It's that time. It's time to get your money right with Vicki Brackens, president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and registered representative of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation, member SIPC. Hey, Vicki, how you doing today?
Oh, George, I'm feeling great today.
It's a very good. We want to remind you that if Vicki says something that I don't understand or I don't think you will understand, we ring the jargon bell and she's got to back it up and make it right. So today, Vicki, we are going to talk about the fact that we are richer than we think.
You know, George, when we spoke last week, I think some people probably were surprised with what I said, but I really did mean it, that you are more than likely already a millionaire. And I looked at that statement and I said, you know, most people probably don't realize it, but it's because of what's called your lifetime earnings. And since it was such a big statement, I thought we'd go back and just for a few minutes rehash that information to be sure everyone got hold of what we were discussing. If you actually stop and think about when you start to work, when you were, say, 20, 21 years old, and you were earning, say, today, possibly on a starting salary for a college graduate, somewhere around $40,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
What you will find is that if you stop and calculate your lifetime earnings, you are going to be absolutely surprised about what that means to you. In fact, there's a tool that I'd like for everyone to use. I like to give you tools, and that's a book that I love.
Yes.
And that book is called The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. And he identifies 7 common traits that show up over and over again for individuals who've accumulated wealth in the $1 million range. And one of the things that he found is that most of those people who are millionaires, about 80% of them, actually did it in a way that all of us have available to us. One nickel at a time. Steady, consistent investing and savings, not necessarily getting $1 million contract for a windfall or anything of that nature. It's about the steady, consistent looking at what's happening with your actual earnings that will create that $1 million figure for you. So let's go back and look at the formula for a second.
Okay.
So let's say you were graduating from school, 21 years old, earning $40,000 a year. You're probably going to work until you're age 65. And if you got a 2% increase every year, consistently, so maybe some years it's 1.5, the other years it's 4, but let's say it averages out to 2% per year. Over that time period, you will have earned $2,780,106.28 over your lifetime. 0.28. Don't forget that 28 cents. What does that mean, though, for you as far as your wealth building? The key is the retention rate. The retention rate is what we call the wealth ratio. And what we need to do with the wealth ratio is to look at this. We need to track, remember, we talked about net worth.
Right.
How much are you retaining?
Wait a minute. Let's stop right there. What's our goal every year?
Thank you, George. Increase your net worth each year.
Thank you.
So if you take your lifetime earnings and divide it by your net worth, it's going to give you a range, a percentage, a ratio.
So let me stop you right there. So assuming that somebody's looking at what they earn right now and project that. So how should they project that out? Because most of us who are listening to this show aren't 21. So how should you figure that if you're in your 40s and your 50s? Should you just calculate how much longer I'm going to work? Or how would you do it if you're not 21? Or just for the sake of this example, just let everybody be 21 and go and play with me?
Okay, well, here's the thing. Let's use 21 for everyone that's starting a career or very early on in their career.
Okay.
But let's say you're 40-something right now.
Right.
You can do one of two things. Try and think back to what you earned, or pull out your Social Security statement, which we can all get online at socialsecurity.gov, and look at what you actually earned, because the record is right there. Okay,
and they'll
add it all up, then take where you're going forward and calculate using the formula that I gave you, or use the tool that I gave you as far as going online to get the lifetimes earning calculator, which will do the calculations for you going forward.
Okay.
Add those two together, and you'll have your lifetime earnings. And then if you want to look at where you are right now, take the earnings up to this date and use that and use your net worth now, use those two factors to see what your current retention rate is. If it is not a retention rate that you expect, let's say it's 10 or 15 or 20%,
Right.
and you know that our goal is minimum 50% or more, it tells you where we need to work.
All right. So what's the lifetime? What's that formula again? Because I think
So lifetime
I got in the middle
earnings
of that. Yeah.
divided by your net worth is going to give you your retention rate or your wealth ratio. All right. So our goal is minimum 50% wealth ratio. Why is that important? We all talk about retirement.
Right.
We're going to need to retain a certain amount of our lifetime earnings in order to retire successfully and sustain ourselves through that. Now, if you want to start getting further up that pyramid that we talked about as far as rich, then that lifetime retention ratio needs to be in the 1,000% range. We'll get back to that, okay, sometime in the future. But here's the last thing we really want to look at here is that in order to go through and invest properly and to do the things that are going to be necessary for us to retain wealth, there's some basics of investment principles that we need to start to follow. One of them is to understand and ask ourselves a really, really important question. What is my risk tolerance when we're talking about financial assets and the risk that we can take for investing?
Can you, Vicki, can you determine that by what you're willing to blow at the casino? I threw that out there for real because people do, and I know you're not advocating that, but people go to the casino and they are assessing their risk tolerance.
All right, okay.
You're not, and that's not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about, but, okay, there is a little bit of a factor in there that I will address.
Okay.
And that is this. What you're saying when you go to the casino is that I have a capacity to lose X without upsetting my goals.
At least that's what I should be doing.
Okay?
Right, believe,
That's
right,
what
right.
you believe. Okay?
Yeah.
I have a capacity.
I'll win before I lose everything. But
Okay,
anyway, yeah,
right. I have a capacity to take this $200 and I still know I can pay my rent. I have a capacity. And there are two terms that we look at, and I want to make sure everybody understands we're not specifically talking about someone's portfolio, but a general concept.
Right.
There are two terms, risk tolerance, which is really about the fluctuation in the value, versus risk capacity, which is really about if I don't meet my goal of winning, when you were talking about there at the casino,
Right.
or if I don't reach my goal of obtaining this result in my investment portfolio on this date, what's plan B? What's plan C? Do I have a plan B and C? Because our capacity for risk really means, do I have a way of accomplishing the goal with other resources that I have? So when you go to the casino, you're saying, if I don't win with this $200, I can still feed my family. I have the capacity to actually move forward on my goals. So
risk tolerance and risk capacity.
Okay, very different. You know what, George?
Yes.
There's a lot more that I could probably say, and I think I will in the future, but this has been so rich as far as our conversation. I'm going to call this Our Plate is Full right now.
Right now.
So I'm going to encourage everybody, first of all, if you have additional questions, to reach out to us at www. I know he's looking at me like you were so old.
Give it to
BrackensFSN.com.
Okay.
Or reach out to us on LinkedIn or 315-428-8448. Thanks, George.
Thank you, Vicki. And don't forget, Vicki had a tool for us today. Everybody go out and get The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. And we want you to tell us what you think about that. Hit us up on Facebook, Inspiration by GK, and Vicki's going to help us to get our paper straight, get organized, and really understand our ability to gain wealth one little savings vehicle at a time. Vicki Brackens, President, Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corp., member SIPC. Inspiration for the nation.